Great. Another question from Jimmy Douglas. I have my own way of dealing, but when you have the 808 of life roaring through the bottom of your trap, pop, or any mix, and then it's so mighty that it takes the vocal sound or makes the vocal sound distorted. When you take the 808, the vocal is fine. When you take out the 808, the vocal is fine. How do you cure this? And remember, you got to keep the 808 up there.
Well, you got to look at your gain structure, right? Your 808 is taking up so much room. You know, a big question for all of us is like, how do you deal with 808s and bass and kicks and that? So a lot of information down there. So what I tend to do, if there's an 808, I don't mess with the 808. I leave it alone. You don't need to add anything to it. And I tend to color around the 808. So that means that my gain structure is going to be really key, because it's if my vocal is competing with an 808, there's just no way they're going to coexist. So you got to make judgment calls, EQing, compression, all that based around. So color around the 808, as opposed to if you have a vocal heavy type of song, then you would color around the vocal. So I tend to try to clear and clean some of the low end by just focusing on the 808 and making that that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Sorry.
I mean, for me, I think the key thing is to remember that a lot of songs and a lot of material has a lot of low end frequency stuff that's subharmonic that you may not even know is there, and it's taking up space. So you sometimes have to clear up low end on unnecessary things just to make room for the things that you want to be the predominant, focal point. And that's number one. And number two, if it's just not going to work, then your gain is way too hot on the whole mix. So you got to pull the whole thing down a little bit and make sure that things could still sit cleanly. And then once you got that, then you can start to work your way back. But a lot of times it's because there's some conflicting stuff happening that's causing that's taking up too much space and eating up the bandwidth, so that there's no room for and it could be some intermodulation distortion happening. There's like some things that are so low in frequency that are affecting the upper frequencies when you don't even realize that they're there. And by just cleaning up some of that stuff, like whether it's on a bass or a synth, sometimes you got a snare drum that's got some DC on it. You can watch the speaker pop out when the snare hits. There's no reason to have low end like that on something like that. So there's all kinds of low end that needs to be cleaned up in various tracks that I think when you have this many tracks and so things add up and you've got all this useless information that's taking up space for the things that you do want. So sometimes you got to look at that and figure out what's causing it, what's in the way, what's the reason. And then once you got that, the gain structure, like Manny said, should get you closer.